it feels like at no point did he look at all of the decisions together and ask, how are these decisions affecting one another, and how does it change the overall package? This is the kind of thing that you only really catch with playtesting, really. I don't know how much playtesting this game had. I know it doesn't have a whole lot of plays or views on the Metroid construction site that I downloaded it from. I don't even know if that site has a huge community to draw from. I've got no idea. It might just be a couple dozen very enthusiastic hobbyists trading hacks back and forth. I'm trying to think now if I could get a good, concise story about an example of something that I've done in the same vein. In RPG Maker. The difference is that I wasn't actively trying to remake anything. My RPG Maker game was its own project. Bork, 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 says Edgar out there for whatever reason. He's like, homie be borkin'. You know who doesn't bork? Rydia. Rydia doesn't bork. I mean, she does if you're playing with her, if she's outside and the mailman's here or something, but right now, we have a little playpen that we built for Rydia. We made a lot of mistakes with Edgar. I'm always very quick to point out how Edgar is the worst dog. And it's true. He is the worst dog. I know, shut up. You're a pet enthusiast. Oh, Brickroad, all dogs are wonderful. No, I've got the worst dog. But it's not his fault that he's the worst dog. We messed up training him. When we got him, we didn't crate train him early, mostly because Peanut thought it was cruel and didn't want to crate train. So not only did he not get housebroken for many years, but also he never learned to kind of calm down in a confined space. He liked his crate well enough. He chills out in there. In fact, when we brought home Rydia, and we're like, okay, we're crate training this one. Like, we're going to do this one correctly. The first thing that Edgar did when we brought Rydia's crate home is he crawled right into her crate to check it out. But the difference is, like, now Rydia, we crate trained her, but once the crate training was done, we're like, okay, well, she likes her little crate. She's got her blanket in there. It smells like her. But what we're going to do now is we're going to, like, set up a playpen area. So we went out and bought, like, one of those wire cages that you use to kind of cordon off sections of your house if you've got pets or small children. And it makes this kind of hexagonal shape in Peanut's office area off of our kitchen. We can go get Screw Attack now. Why do you want Screw Attack when there's literally nothing left except the final level? Because there was no other item to put behind the Ridley gate, and we already put something behind a Craig gate. So, I guess it's not completely useless. It's very useful against the Spaghettios in Torian. But anyway, Rydia has her little playpen, and she learned as a puppy that her bed is in there and her crate is in there. And she has some toys in there, and when we put her in the playpen, it's time to cool out. It's a safe, comfortable place she can go, and nobody bothers her, and she just lays down and she's nice and quiet. Edgar never had that training, so now that he's 13 years old, there's no way to get him to shut up, ever. If he gonna bark, he gonna bark. Anyway, Edgar's the worst dog, and it's our fault. I think that was the point I was making. But yeah, I am trying to, like, think of an example of an RPG Maker thing. I need to go backwards. Oh, I need to go up here. Right. Like here-ish. Here? We just did this earlier in the video. I've already forgotten. Here? Gotta be this double bubble then, right here. No. Well, then I don't know how to get through this maze, even though I've done it in this video once already. There it is. Then we come over here and go up. Yes. Perfect. Nailed it. But I'm certain I've had moments like that, where I built a game system using RPG Maker's engine to do a specific thing, and then it was done. I'm like, okay, well, that's done. And then I go build on some other game system, and if I did notice later that the two systems, for whatever reason, didn't meld properly together, my response wasn't to go back and try to fix the problem. My response was to be like, well, I made all the best decisions I could for both of those systems at the time. I guess that's as good as it's going to get. And that's fine for a hobbyist. That's fine for an amateur game designer. I would say it's necessary for an amateur game designer. Because the opposite of that problem, believe it or not, is not a well-designed game with all features interacting properly. The opposite of that problem is somebody who doesn't understand the limitations of what they're working with and the limitations of their own workability, the limitations of what they can personally do. So you end up with overly ambitious ideas. I should be grabbing these missiles as I go, because we're going to Turian next. Super Mario Bros. X had a lot of levels like this. If you really want to see some of this kind of stuff on display, I've got an old Let's Play series called Super RMN Bros, where they're using an old Mario game engine to make levels, and there was no thought given to what are the limitations of this engine. What kind of levels should we be making that feel like Mario levels? There was no top-level thought put into what is the design of this project, like what are the goals, what should we be doing, what kinds of stuff should we disallow. And the result was people would make these extremely long, meandering levels with no checkpoints. I remember criticizing the RMN Bros levels back in the day, and I was like, this level needs a checkpoint. And somebody would say, oh, well, because of XYZ reason in the editor, it's not possible to put a checkpoint in the level. And they're right. Because of the level they were making, something to do with, I think, scrolling levels couldn't have them for whatever reason, or it broke scrolling levels for some reason. I don't remember the specifics, but certain kinds of levels couldn't have checkpoints. Kind of like the modern Mario Maker. If you put a level goal, like you have to be Fire Mario to touch the flag, is an option for Mario Maker. If you do that, you're not allowed to put in a checkpoint. But that's an excuse. That's not a reason. Like, the level's bad without a checkpoint. Oh, well, I can't have a checkpoint. It's not possible because of... Well, then the level needs to be retooled. The level needs to be reworked. You've got to go back to the drawing board and look at the two things in isolation. Thing number one, I want to build this scrolling level with this complex, whatever it was. Thing number two, I want to have a checkpoint in my level. I can't do both at once. Is there a way I can do both in isolation? I really want to not get grabbed by metroids. One thing this hack does, and I'm not entirely sure how it does it, but it managed to make the metroids feel threatening. I don't know if they're faster or whatever, but it definitely feels like NES Turian. So props for that. You got that right. That's excellent. Because the Metroids and Super Metroid feel really bad. I would prefer to kill them with one super, though, if possible. I do have a delivery coming later today. Usually I won't record or stream on days where I know I have a delivery coming, because it really sets my dogs off. And if Edgar really gets set off, Rydia will. This one's gonna... There we go. But it's not really feasible these days, because we're getting deliveries basically every day. With we can't leave the house to go shopping, so we're getting groceries delivered, and she's having to do... My wife is a teacher. And of course, right now schools are closed, so they're doing what they're calling distance learning, which is just a fancy way of saying, school's at home now and you're doing it all online. So any materials or things that she needs for her classroom, we have to get ordered and sent to that. So we're getting deliveries constantly. And it's actually very difficult because a lot of places you can't schedule deliveries. It's just like our systems are so overwhelmed. It's just whatever we can send a delivery guy out. But for whatever reason today, which is a Saturday, by the way, they were like, what time would you like your groceries delivered? So I made sure to put in the evening so I would have all day today to do recording. I'm hoping that they're not sending my delivery over early. So I don't have to stop the recording to go deal with it, but we'll see how it goes. Oh! You know what? I'm just gonna do this. See ya. It's well hard to bomb metroids off, too. You can see how low my missile count is. I mean, I could have gotten more missiles throughout the game, but in NES Metroid, you kind of count on getting your mini-boss missiles. That guy doesn't get stuck in the floor anymore because the floor is further away from the ceiling. Alright, so far so good. And this is where the screw attack is very helpful. So it's not like he messed up the screw attack, but in Metroid and Super Metroid, the screw attack is really an exploration item. It's not really an attack item. Combat is just not that central to those two games. So the whole point of the screw attack is to facilitate exploration. In the original, it makes all of the huge, cramped, enemy-filled rooms in the hideouts are more palatable because you can just screw attack your way through them. It still takes some skill and finesse. It's still a game system you have to acclimate to. But that's one of the reasons you can get the screw attack, I think, before you go to either hideout. And then in Super Metroid, obviously, there are literal exploration sections in Lower Norfair where the screw attack is borderline required. Or at least you're meant to have it. And then, of course, the real reason is, after you get the screw attack, well, now you've got all of your items, and you go back to the entire game world looking for all the stuff that you missed. And the screw attack just makes that a lot more palatable. In this game, the screw attack is really just there to help with those SpaghettiOs. There's just no exploration or combat or anything, really, after you've killed the two bosses. I guess you could go down and fight Ridley first if you want to bomb jump over that big wall and do all of, I'm just going to call it Lower Norfair without the charge beam or the high jump boots. And then you get the screw attack, but then you've only got the screw attack for hideout number 1. You've still gone through all of Norfair and all of Ridley. I don't know, it's weird to think about. We didn't even adjust how many items were in the game. It's gonna tell us like 26% items at the end or something. So yeah, I just want to remind everybody that the reason I played this was because somebody made a pithy comment about, I wonder if his next game is going to be a remake of, and it was actually going to be NES Metroid was my next game. So I hunted down, I found this, and I'm glad I did. I enjoyed my time with it. This was my 3rd time playing it. I did once to just kind of learn the game. My second test play was to kind of plot a route that I was going to take for this LP. And now that I've played it through 3 times, I don't know that I'll pick it back up. I think I prefer playing the NES Metroid. And that's a weird statement for me to make, because I'm on record now saying that that's not a great game. Like, it's historically important, but as a game, it's not super fun. I think a version of this ROM hack that just builds the maps of Metroid as faithfully as possible and makes no other changes. Like, replace the long beam with the charge beam, because that's the only item in Super or in Metroid that's not in Super. But leave in the wall jump, maybe even start the player with the speed boosters so you can start out running quickly, or if you're not going to do that, at least leave in the run button. Allow me to crouch, allow me to all that stuff. I think that would have been a much more interesting take on this basic idea. How faithfully can we recreate NES Metroid is a fun question, but what do the Super Metroid physics and moveset do to the Metroid 1 maps is also an interesting question. And unfortunately, I don't think this ROM hack really explores either idea. It's really this strange in-betweeny state. I'm glad I played it. It was fun. If it looked fun, go download it. The link's down in the doobly-doo. Try it out. See if you like it. I do like there's a timer just on screen. That's pretty nice. I don't know if there's many people speedrunning this. I haven't even bothered to look into it. But as a curiosity, I think I enjoyed it. As an entrant into this Metroid mega series that I am inflicting on all of you here in 2020, I think it's worth having. And who knows, I might pick it back up again one day. It takes an hour to play. Any game that only takes an hour to play is going to get replayed eventually. Can we all just agree on that? If it's only an hour long, like, you're gonna put it back in eventually, even if it's not that great of a game. That's just a truism in this wide world of ours. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope everybody is faring well during the pandemic, or has fared well in the pandemic of 5 years ago if you're watching this down the road. 23% of the items. See you next mission. Shoutouts to Torgo for sponsoring this video. If you liked the video and you want to see more, please tickle my thumb, leave a friendly comment, and ring my little bell.